standard students. This is the first and the most important grammar topic which you have for your board exam. Is something that you've been doing since the 8th standard. So this is just so the first question is an MCQ. What we're doing today is where you are given three options, the verbs and their tenses, you need to know when to use and when you need to use which tense to be used. This is the first part of 3 videos. That's why you'll need to pay attention to the clue words and the sentence structures. And for the next question, which is a non-MCQ question, you will be told which tense to use. So you just need to conjugate the given verb in the tense which has been mentioned to you in the question. Take up the first 5 tenses which you have for your portion. That is présent, passé composé, futur proche, passé récent, and futur simple. In the next video, you will find the last 3 tenses, imparfait, impératif, et conditionnel. And in the third video, you will get the sentence structures, which you need for the MCQ type question. The simple present tense is something that you know since the 8th standard, so you should know it thoroughly well by now. This is just a quick revision that we have 3 groups of verbs. So for the ER group, you remove the ER and you add the appropriate endings. That is E, ESE, ONS, EZ, ENT. For the IR group, remove the IR and add the endings for the IR family. And for the RE group, you remove the RE and you add the appropriate endings which correspond to the RE family. Please learn the endings according to the families so you don't mix it up. You cannot put the IS, ISIT endings for the ER family. You will get verbs which do not exist. So be very careful with what endings you are attaching to which family verbs. So very well for the present tense, there are a lot of irregular verbs. I've given you some on the screen, être, avoir, aller, venir, etc. But there are lots more, there are at least 30 to 40. So please refer to the back of your textbook. That entire list is there. You have to learn them by heart. Now, when do we use this present tense? The clue words are maintenant, depuis, chaque, and toujours. So basically actions that are happening habitually on a regular basis every day. That is when you use the present tense. You can see an example there. Chaque matin is the clue word for every morning. Therefore, you are conjugating aimer in the present tense. The second use is for a general fact, a fact that is always true. Delhi is the capital of India. La France est un pays en Europe. France is always going to be a country in Europe. It's not going to shift into Africa one day. So it's a general fact, you have to use the present tense. After every tense, you will find a set of questions for you to practice. So whenever you see this purple slide, pause the video, copy the questions, try and solve them, and you will get the answers on the next slide. This is for your practice only, so there's no need to cheat and go on to the next slide. Copy the question, solve it, and then go on to the next slide. Coming to the next tense now, which is called the passé composé or the simple past tense. As in English, it is used to talk about something that has happened in the general past. You know that it is made up of 2 parts, the auxiliary, which is either avoir or être in the present, and the participle. Most of the time we use the auxiliary avoir, but for certain verbs, the auxiliary is être, which you will get in the next few slides. But first, let's look at the participle formation. Participles for the 3 regular families are formed as such. You will cancel off the endings and you will add the new ending. For ER, the new ending is E accent aigu. For IR, the new ending is I, so you are simply cancelling the R. And for RE, the new ending is U. You can see the examples applied here, and you can use these rules for any of the verbs belonging to the 3 regular families. As in any tense, there will always be exceptions. So these are the exceptions for the participle formation in the passé composé. Go through it. You already know what these verbs mean. These exceptions to the participles have to be learnt by heart, because you cannot apply the rules of the regular families to these particular verbs. Before, majority of the verbs are conjugated in the passé composé with the auxiliary as avoir. So you can see the example I've taken here for you is chercher, which is a normal ER verb. So to form the participle, you cancel off the ER and you put EX to EQ, and you will put the auxiliary avoir conjugated in the present tense followed by the participle, and that is how you'll get the passé composé for chercher. This is the list of verbs that conjugate their passé composé using être. All the other verbs will use avoir. So it's important that you learn this list of verbs. You can easily remember them by this acronym, Dr. and Mrs. Van der Tramp. You can see the verbs on the screen. Memorize them because only these go with être for the passé composé. All the rest go with avoir. This is important. You need to note that the participles of verbs that conjugate their passé composé with être have to agree with the subject. This is the participle which has to agree. So all the Dr. Mrs. Van der Tramp participles are agreeing with the number and gender of the subject. So you can see if the subject is feminine singular, there is an extra E added to the participle. If the subject is plural, there is an extra S added to the participle. And if it's the case that the subject is plural as well as feminine, like the last example, les actrices, you have to add an extra E and an extra S to the participle. Please note that this agreement happens only when we are in the passé composé using être as the auxiliary, not with avoir. That the reflexive verbs are verbs which reflect the action back onto the subject. Now all these kinds of verbs are conjugated using être in the passé composé and not avoir. So, but naturally, the participle will also have to agree with the subject, just like I've shown you in the previous slide. So whenever it's feminine, an extra E. Whenever it's plural, an extra S. When it's feminine as well as plural, an extra E and an extra S. You can see s'occuper conjugated here for you. Notice how the E and the S has been added in certain places. Words here for the passé composé are hier, dernier, passé, any year which has passed, like 1920, 2010, anything like that, or simply any word which gives you an indication of the past. So for example, nous voyager, you have to conjugate en France l'année passée. L'année passée is last year, which is giving you the indication that you have to use a simple past tense. So voyager is conjugated with avoir, so you would put avant, and then the participle, it's a regular ER verb, so you cancel the ER and you put EX or EQ. Now the next one, sortir, is a Dr. Mrs. Van der Tramp verb, so you have to put être for Michelle, which becomes a. The participle is sortir, you will cancel off the R. Now this is an être verb, so you have to agree the participle with the subject. Michelle is feminine singular, therefore it gets an extra E to the sortir, becomes SORTIE. Sentences that were given to you for the present tense, now you can try conjugating them in the past tense, the passé composé. Pause the video, answers are on the next slide. Tenses that will go to the future proche and the passé récent are very simple. You cannot afford to make mistakes with these. So the future proche is simply, you have to put aller in the present tense according to the subject, and you just put the full verb and you will get the future proche. Copy down the conjugation of aller if you are not sure of it, and then you can look at the example done for you. Fair. Aller is conjugated and then the full verb. The future proche is not the simple future tense, it is a near future tense, something that is going to happen very soon. So the famous clue words here for you are bientôt, après 5 minutes or après 1 heure. Anytime in the near future, maybe 10 minutes to hours, will be conjugated using the future proche. So in the example given to you, dans une heure, in 1 hour, is the clue word. So that's the action is going to happen within the next hour, so you have to use the future proche. Conjugate aller for vous becomes aller, and then the full verb completed. So it becomes vous allez compléter le devoir dans une heure. proche. The answers are there for you in the next slide. Proche, which is the near future. The passé récent is exactly the opposite, which is the recent past, something that has just happened. So there you are taking aller and then the full verb. Here you have to take venir in the present and the full verb, but in between make sure you are putting in the de or d apostrophe if the verb begins with a vowel. That is important. In the future proche there is no de, but in the passé récent note that there is a de. So copy down the conjugation of venir if you are not sure of it, and then you can look at the example on the right of voir, where venir has been conjugated followed by the and then the full verb voir. What gave you an indication that something has just taken place or just happened is a clue for the passé récent. One of the main ones is il y a followed by a time duration of recent past. Now il y a is there is, but il y a also means ago, so don't get confused. So il y a 5 minutes, il y a une heure, these are all indications of the passé récent. So for the example, the clue there is il y a 10 minutes. 10 minutes meaning 10 minutes ago, something that has just happened. So you put venir for je, which is vient, and you put the, and then you put the full verb as it is, composé. Example practice work for you to do. Solve it and then go on to the next slide where you'll get the answers. Last step in this video is a simple future tense, some action that is going to take place in the distant future. So for this you need to take the root and you need to take the ending. The root for IR and ER verbs is simply the full verb, whereas for RE verbs you just have to cancel off the last E. Now the endings are pretty simple to remember, just remember it as the verb avoir in the present tense. So for je the ending is AI, tu AS, il A, nous ONS, vous it is EZ, and il it is ONT. Examples for you of the three regular families, see in the RE how the E has been removed before adding the endings. For the other two families, you take the full verb as it is and then you add the endings. These are the exceptions that you need to note for the simple future tense. You just need to learn the part that is italicized, and then according to the person you will have to add the correct ending. Here it's given to you for je. Accordingly, you would have to change it according to the person given to you. You'll have to change the endings. These have to be learned by heart. Words are prochain ou prochaine, which means next, demain, tomorrow, suivant is following. So anything that is less than demain, any time period that is shorter than 1 day, 24 hours, you would be using the futur proche. Anything longer than 24 hours, use the simple future. So for the first example, le mois prochain is the next month, which is a clue word for simple future. Retourner is an ER verb, so you keep it as it is and you will simply add the ending for Jamie, that will be A. Then 2021 is a year in the future, so it's an RE verb, so you cancel off the last E and you would add the ending ONT, because Mario and Laura becomes ILS, so the appropriate ending is ONT, and therefore you get on throne. Same sentences which you've been doing. Now please conjugate them in the simple future tense. The answers on the next slide. I will see you in the next video where we'll take up the 3 remaining tenses. Thank you.